Well, the UK is going to be the first sovereign to issue a renminbi bond outside of mainland China. We've just appointed the banks to start the marketing of that sovereign bond, and we're going to raise renminbi to put in our foreign exchange reserves. And I think that tells you two things. First, that the renminbi is an increasingly international currency, and this is a big step in that internationalization process, that a major Western economy like the UK is choosing to do this. And second, it sends a very clear signal that London as a financial centre wants to be at the heart of that internationalisation process. It's part of an agenda I've pursued of making sure that the big Western offshore renminbi centre is in the UK.
UK also recently announced that China will partner with the UK to build high-speed rail networks in the UK. What was behind this decision to partner with China on this project?
Well, it's part of a growing cooperation between our two countries on the economic sphere. We've talked about the financial cooperation with the renminbi, with the banking system, and so on. But also we want to partner on big infrastructure. And we are attracting Chinese investment into our civil nuclear power. Again, a big step for the UK and part of the partnership that exists with China. But there may be the potential for other big infrastructure investments. We're now building a new high-speed rail network up the spine of England. Clearly this is an area where China is interested in getting involved, has its own high-speed rail network. And we've agreed to create a working group between the two governments to see how we can draw on Chinese expertise and potentially Chinese finance as we go about this major infrastructure project.
There are a lot of countries in Europe that are mired in recession, if not experiencing stagnant growth. The UK is clearly very presently involved within the EU. But do you see your future growth prospects perhaps more towards Asia and countries like China?
Well, of course, Britain is a European country. We're not in the Eurozone, but we do export a lot to the Eurozone. 40% of our exports go to the Eurozone. Now, I think that that historical pattern leaves us exposed in the future, and I want to change it and make sure that we are better connected to faster growing markets outside of Europe than we have been historically. So I've put a huge effort, Prime Minister David Cameron has put a huge effort into promoting trade and investment links with China, with India, with Brazil and other big emerging economies. I've put a particular emphasis on the links with China. And whether it's issuing a sovereign renminbi bond, whether it's granting licenses for Chinese banks to open branches in Britain, whether it's the investment in civil nuclear power, the potential investment in high-speed rail in the UK, or indeed the big investments in China that you see from British pharmaceutical companies, oil and gas companies, British architects designing the new airports there and the great new buildings being built in the cities there. It's part of a flourishing relationship, and it's all about the UK reaching out to the rest of the world and not having all of our, eggs in one basket. Which is something that in the last few years, because of the problems in the Eurozone, has been a challenge for the UK economy.
We talk about problems in the Eurozone. How damaging would a potential recession in Germany be for the rest of Europe, including the UK?
Well, clearly, the German economy is a very important economy in the world, and problems in the German economy would be felt across the world, not just in Europe. Now, I have a lot of confidence in German ingenuity, German economic strength, but clearly, more broadly, weakness in the Eurozone does have an impact on the UK, and you already see, to a degree, some of our exports to Europe affected by the recent slowdown in Europe. So our response to that should be twofold. First, we should continue to broaden our links to the rest of the world in the way that I've described, our trade and investment links with China. And second, we should pursue the economic plan that has pulled the UK out of the very difficult economic situation it was in 4 or 5 years ago, and means that when I come here to the IMF, I am representing the country with the fastest growing economy of any of the major Western economies. So our economic plan has worked. We've got to pursue it. Part of that economic plan is trade and investment links with China. Those are much stronger than they were a few years ago, but I think there's lots more to do, and this sovereign RMB bond that we're issuing, I think, is another big and important step in that relationship.